I'm going to call this meeting to order. June 10th, 2020 town meeting. We're setting history. There's never been a town meeting held in the football field before. So if you could please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. Thank you. Okay, our state reps, Ken Gordon, sends his regrets, but he's in some racism meeting, so he's unable to join us tonight. New members. We have a number of new members. Could you just please stand up so I can see who you are and other people can see who you are? You know, I won't know your name, so I won't call you by name, but then again, I can't identify most of the people here tonight with their masks on, so no one's going to get that privilege. Folks on the edges, if you can't see me, I can't see you, so just remember that. The moderator would consider a motion to allow us to vote by hand instead of standing. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We will try this. Hopefully I will be able to see hands raised. If not, then we'll switch to having to stand to be recognized, but we'll try it this way first. The moderator would consider a motion to name Bruce Murray as the deputy moderator. Should one be needed? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. A couple other things to cover. We have someone to say goodbye to and someone to welcome. Mr. Curtin, after how many blessed years have you finally decided you've had enough of us? 20, and he's moving off and retiring, so and we have an able replacement, a figure not unknown to us, Mr. Giannino, taking over as town accountant. Couple other things to go through. Today I saw a news article about voting in Georgia with people waiting hours and hours to be able to vote. We need an applause for our town clerk who managed to pull off a flawless town election. And there's some other thank yous that we need to consider. We needed some extra help in getting ready for this meeting. So I'd like to thank the Board of Health, in particular Susan Luminello, for all their help in getting this set up so we'd be in a safe environment. And John Porter, who helped set up all the AV equipment. And she's going to get I hope she doesn't get a swelled head, but Amy carried the water on this one. She did yeoman's work setting all of this up, and we need to give her another thank you. And the audio company AVX. Okay, so now let's get down to business. Reports of town officers and committees. I understand the selectmen have something they would like to say.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Can everyone hear me okay with the mask? Excellent. We have a statement we'd like to read. The Board of Selectmen condemns the actions of the Minneapolis police officers, which resulted in the death of George Floyd 2 weeks ago, and believe they should be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. It's important that as leaders of our community, we recognize that racism still exists in this world, and recently, students and residents gathered on the town common to remind us just of that. We condemn these acts and offer sympathy to those who have had to experience them. Every person deserves to be treated equally, fairly, and with dignity. We will continue to ensure that the town of Burlington is a safe place to visit, live, work, and learn for all. Burlington Police Chief Michael Kent has taken the lead to ensure that continued education and training maintains our department as one of the best in the state. We are committed to the safety and equality of all residents and visitors, and will continue to educate ourselves, listen to the community, and reinforce our message through practice and policy. We will stand together as one Burlington. We see you, we hear you. We will always strive to do better for you and with you. Thank you.
Mr. Sagarino, did you want to speak to us before we get cranked?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you all for being here tonight. I also have a couple other thank yous I would like to give. And the first off is for helping us navigate this COVID situation. I really want to tell you that we couldn't have done it without our Board of Health and our Health Director, Susan Luminello. They were unbelievable every step of the way of this process, keeping everybody safe and keeping us working and allowing us the ability to provide services to the residents. So I wanted to thank them for that. I'd also like to very much thank the men and women of our police and fire departments who worked on the front lines during the COVID crisis. As many of you may know, we did have several employees become infected through their work in dealing with the public. And I just wanted to give them a big thank you from everybody. We also have many of our employees who went above and beyond during the crisis to continue to provide services to the residents, albeit in different ways without our doors open. And I really can't thank them enough. We haven't had very many complaints at all about balls being dropped or people not being able to get in touch with the town. And I just wanted to thank all our other dedicated employees for what they've done. And lastly, I really want to thank the residents. Their understanding throughout the pandemic has been unbelievable. We had to make several changes to the way we do businesses and adjust our services, and it affected people's daily lives and trash and water and their ability to get in contact with us. And overwhelmingly, our residents were supportive beyond belief. And I can't thank all of you and all of our residents enough for your level of understanding as to how we had to adjust to this crisis. So thank you to you all. Mr. Moderator had asked me to do a brief overview of sort of where we are on the budget. It's a very unique year, as we all are aware. We have chosen a path after thoughtful consideration and the input of many. I know this is a hot topic for many of you, and I've heard from many of you, and I just want to let you know, although we may be going in a different path than what you have suggested, it really is an unprecedented time. So we really do appreciate everybody's input, and we hope we can get your support But I just want to let you know, even if we're doing something different from the way you think that we should do it, that doesn't mean that we don't, that we think that your ideas are bad or that you're crazy or anything like that, because, everybody's idea is as good as the next person's in this situation. We really, we've chosen a path, and we think it's the right path for the town, but we do value your input, and certainly towns are approaching this in many different ways, some of them like we are, and some of them are doing things differently, and I think that was reflective in some of the feedback that I got from many of you. We're doing it this way, but there are other ways to do it, but we think this is the best way to do it. So with that said, I'd like to give a brief overview of sort of what you'll see with the budget tonight. When COVID hit, we were approximately had the budget 95% approved through the process. So, you may not think that's a big deal or not, but I would estimate that there's about thousands of hours spent in preparing and reviewing budgets by employees, department heads, and elected and appointed boards. They had all put in a ton of time to get to this point. When COVID hit, we realized that this was going to be a major disruption, and we discussed, what's the best approach for the town of Burlington. With the Ways and Means, the school administration, and what we really came to the conclusion was we really wanted to have more time to receive more data so that we can make better informed decisions. And as we were doing that, we reviewed our strengths and weaknesses. For years, and I was formerly the accounting officer for the town, this community has always prided itself on conservative budgeting. And I think that I carried on that tradition from my predecessor, and John has certainly carried it on from me. We've been preparing for something like this for a long time, and we didn't expect it to be a pandemic. We could have been a fire at a town building or a collapsed sewer line, but we've certainly been budgeting very conservatively with just this in mind, that if something terrible were to happen, we would not have to decimate the town budget immediately. We would be able to buy ourselves some time to make good decisions. And, as we did that, we considered, how is this crisis going to affect us? And I would say the first thing that came up is our local receipts. Local receipts is a category of budget where really primarily based upon our local economy. Immediately, you think of our hotel tax, which is a very large revenue source for us, meals tax, building permits, anything that would be related to our local town economy. We knew that they were going to get decimated immediately. But because of our conservative budgeting, we had the ability to absorb what we consider would be the first wave of attack on our finances would be through the local receipts. Because we had budgeted that conservatively, like many towns did, we were able to absorb that first wave. We feel that the lack of local receipts that we'll be receiving will directly impact our free cash that we have certified at the end of the year. That's our first impact there. So in response to that, what we did was we held back on our use of free cash this year. We spent the least amount of free cash that we have in many years. And as a result of that, we'll be carrying over, if town meeting were to approve the spending tonight, we'll be carrying over $10 million worth of free cash to next year. Just to put that in perspective, when I first came to the town, the total amount of free cash that we would receive before we spent any was sometimes in the $2 to $3 million range. So we're actually carrying forward $10 million, which is probably more than we actually have had certified over the years. So it's a good sum of money. The second area is a town stabilization fund or rainy day fund. We've put that money aside over the years for this purpose. We're happy to say that we're not proposing tapping into that at this point in time. But it is a reserve. It is available for us if we need it in an emergency. It is, after all, the rainy day fund. The next area that we're concerned about, and this is really important, we have to concern ourselves with what type of cuts we're going to have to our state aid. We don't receive a lot of state aid, which is a bad thing, but in some ways it's a benefit to us right now, because when they cut it, it doesn't have the same impact on Burlington as it may in another community that relies more on state aid. This is the part of the budget that we want to hold off on and assess in September town meeting. So we're asking for the ability from town meeting to approve the budget tonight and wait till September to see what happens with state aid, and then to adjust the budget further at that time. Now, in order for us to do that, what we commit to you is, starting tomorrow, between tomorrow and next September, we will work with the Ways and Means Committee and the school administration, and we will develop a list of cuts at different ranges. If we get cut $500,000, if we get cut $1 million, this is what we would do. If we get cut $2 million, $3 million, this is how we would address it in September. And what we're committing to you is, on July 1st, we will delay purchasing items that were approved in the budget. We will implement a spending freeze for unnecessary expenditures. We will wait to fill open positions. If there are any open positions in the town, we'll carefully review those, and we will not fill them until we have a better idea of how this may impact us in September. And of course, if things get really bad, we will have to consider, reduction or elimination of programs, services, and staff. And we're committed to doing all of that, starting tomorrow through September. And again, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have the best data available so that we can make the least harmful cuts to the residents' services and the student services. And if I could, I'll just bring you to fiscal 22. So despite how conservative we've been, and despite the fact that we entered the pandemic probably in the best financial condition in the town's history, that's not going to buy us too much time. So fiscal year 22, we could be in for a very difficult year, but we will be going into it with reserves, with our stabilization fund intact. And more importantly, and this was really important to all of us on the town administration, the school administration, and the Ways and Means Committee, we will have time to assess what is actually going on in the finances. We'll have more time, and we'll have more data so that we can make decisions that are least disruptive to our residents and students. So I appreciate all your time. I know that many of you have listened to the videos, and the moderator had asked if we could just provide a brief overview sort of as to what the town's strategy is. Again, many towns are doing some things differently. Many towns are doing just the similar thing to we are. We put our heads together, and we feel that this is the best path forward for Burlington at this time. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Sagarino. Mr. Riggs, please. Perspective of Ways and Means.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you, town meeting members, for coming out tonight. The weather cooperated. You heard from Paul how good a position we're in financially, and Ways and Means agrees. We are, coming up until March, this is the we had a very positive atmosphere in town. Businesses are doing well, and everything's going gangbusters. And a lot of that success is what got us to where we are today. So we have a very strong commercial base. We need to get them back going again, but that's the people are there and the infrastructure is there. As Paul mentioned, looking at the local receipts, the revenue, that's of course where the concern arises. But Ways and Means, as part of doing what we do with sort of every year with budgets, is we did a thorough review with multiple subcommittees in Ways and Means. We talked to the school department. There's a subcommittee of 5 people that reviews the school budget, and they did a very good job of asking questions and ensuring that things got put together. Other subcommittees talk to each of the town department, review each budget in detail, and all the boards and the commissions. So we looked at everything as we usually do to see that we can deliver the services that residents expect from the town in an efficient and effective manner without sort of excessive desires of things. The other piece of the budget, the capital warrant articles, which Paul alluded to as well, those are all funded from they're one-time expenditures, and they're funded from local receipts. That's the place where most of the sort of the cuts from the original budget proposals happened. There was a sort of a reprioritization, a reconsideration, both from the schools and from the town, about which projects were really important and which could be postponed. And that's a big piece of conserving the free cash is being able to postpone some of those projects to later. A few things were withdrawn, but largely they were deferred until we, as Paul said, we know more and we know what's going to happen. But one of the things that's really important is that we don't lose the momentum that Burlington has in terms of developing our infrastructure and supporting the services that the town and the residents and the businesses expect. We can't just go hide in a cave. We have to continue to support the infrastructure in the town and keep it strong. Maybe I ran out of notes. So Ways and Means thinks we have a good budget. We appreciate the fact that the administration has put forth a general policy or an approach to conserving the money that is in the operating budget and being able to reconsider things in September when we have a better handle on both the local receipts and the state aid. And as I hate to parrot Paul all the time, but we need more time. We're in very good, strong position today, but there's a lot of unknowns, and it's going to take a little while to figure them out. So Ways and Means supports the budget, and you'll hear more about that as we go along through the individual items. So thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Dr. Conti, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thanks everyone for being here tonight. Similar to Paul, I want to make sure I thank the Board of Health and Susan Luminello. She really helped the school district through the initial closing, and she's been extremely helpful now as we begin to reopen. Her guidance is essential for us keeping all of our students and employees safe. So Susan, thank you. I want to make sure I just took a minute to thank our parents and educators. We always state that our parents and educators are partners in their children's education. The ratios this spring, though, have really shifted for us in those relationships, and I want to make sure I thank the parents as well as all the educators in Burlington. You can imagine in your professional lives having your work life sort of turned upside down and having to learn new skills and implement at the same time, and again, our educators were very good at doing that, so I want to make sure I thank them for all of their time and effort. In the next few months, as people said, there's a lot of unknowns for us opening into the fall. I think one of the things that has helped us this spring is certainly the guidance we've gotten from Ways and Means Subcommittee, but also our regular meetings with the town's financial team. I think Nicole, Paul, John, and I have met regularly, and again, that's been very helpful, so thank you for your time for that. And what we're hearing, again, in the next month, things could change, but what we're hearing is the state is going to be releasing guidelines for the reopening of school, and those guidelines are going to be relatively prescriptive, and sort of the early ratio that we're hearing from the state is about 85% of what we do, how we construct a school day, is going to be state directed, and there's going to be about 15% of local flexibility depending on the percentage of infections and the environments that we can create. So with that, we are committed to working with the town, as Paul said, beginning tomorrow, to make sure that we are very careful with our purchasing and that we are flexible and we're in our planning, and that we prepare a safe environment to reopen schools because a key to getting the economy restarted is getting our schools open again. And we want to have your children, your grandchildren, the children in town back in our classrooms as soon as possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Conti. Obviously, this year is a very different year, and we're taking a slightly different approach in that we're trying to be as efficient as we can. We have made an unprecedented amount of information available for backup, for presentations on BCAT and videos and whatever. And of course, I trust every one of you have devoured every second of it and memorized it. The intent of all of this is not to limit discussion. That's our job, to discuss the issues in front of us. But it was hopefully to eliminate some questions that will just help us keep moving a little bit more quickly than normal. I mean, this is a one-shot deal. We have what we can get done tonight as our spring town meeting, and so we want to take this as far as we possibly can. On that note, for spending articles, I will be reading both Ways and Means and Capital Budget Committee votes, and okay, let's move forward. Articles 2, 3, and 4 have been withdrawn. Article 5 is to fund revolving accounts, and it is as printed in the warrant. Mr. Sagarino, do you want to say anything on this article?
No.
Okay, well, this has no spending involved. This is just setting limits on the amount of money that we can spend out of revolving accounts where we put receipts from various ways it comes into the town. Any questions from the body? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Article 6 is to fund the operating budget. We will progress with this as we do every year. I will go through each line item. If there are department budgets that you wish to hold for further discussion, please yell out "hold," and we will set them aside. And once we've gone through the entire list, we will take a vote on all those that have not been held, and then we will go back to the ones that have been held. Okay, Department 113, Town Meeting and Reports, $15,908. Ways and Means vote 1100. Any questions on this? No hold? Okay. Other legislative committees, grand total $8,517, increase of 21.36%. Ways and Means vote 1100. Department 122, Selectmen, Town Administrator, grand total $662,382, decrease of 0.78%. Ways and Means vote 1200. Town Accountant, $448,863, an increase of 19.39. Ways and Means vote of 1200. Assessors, grand total $426,622, an increase of 2.02%. Ways and Means vote 1300. Treasurer Collector, grand total $718,791, an increase of 0.18%. Ways and Means vote of 1100 in favor. Central Administration, grand total $17,876,894, an increase of 5.66%. Ways and Means supported this 1300. Okay, we got a hold on that one. Department 151 Legal, grand total $202,002. Level funded, Ways and Means vote 12-0-0. Human Resources, grand total $156,627, increase of 2.59%. Ways and Means vote 11-0-0. Department 155 MIS, grand total $662,929, an increase of 4.23%. Ways and Means vote 13-0-0. Town Clerk, grand total $444,695, an increase of 15.34%. Ways and Means vote 13-0-0. Hold on that one. Board of Registrars, grand total $12,050, an increase of 0.42%. Ways and Means vote 12-0-0 in favor. Conservation, grand total $263,025, an increase of 2.25%. Ways and Means supported this 12-0-0. Planning, grand total $358,647, increase of 1.76%. Ways and Means supported this 13-0-0. Board of Appeals, grand total $13,731, level funded. Ways and Means supported this 13-0-0. Town Facilities, $95,943, level funded. Ways and Means supported this 9-0-0. Police, grand total $9,188,359, an increase of 1.19%. Ways and Means voted 12-0-0 in favor. Fire Department, grand total $8,604,833, an increase of 2.68%. Ways and Means supported this 11-0-0. Building Department, grand total $739,622, an increase of 7.72%. Ways and Means supported this unanimously. Hold on that one. Sealer of Weights and Measures, grand total $7,800, level funded. Ways and Means vote 13-0-0. Emergency Management, $23,600, level funded. Ways and Means vote 11-0-0. Local Education, total local ed, $68,089,077. There we go. An increase of 3.97%. Ways and Means supported this 13-0-0. There was a hold. Regional School Assessments, $2,733,797, 11.68% increase. Ways and Means supported this 13-0-0. Hold. Public Works, grand total $12,302,686, an increase of 2.56%. Ways and Means vote 13-0-0. Board of Health, $662,946, an increase of 3.86%. Ways and Means vote 11-0-0. Council on Aging, $424,235, an increase of 6.38%. Ways and Means vote 12-0-0. Veteran Services. Is that a hold on Council on Aging? Veteran Services. Total $253,404, increase of 2.5%. Ways and Means supported this 13-0-0. Youth and Family Services. Grand total $478,825, an increase of 1%. Ways and Means vote 13-0-0. Disability Access Commission. Grand total $942, an increase of 1.03%. Ways and Means vote 13-0-0. Library, grand total $1,633,299, increase of 1.44%. Ways and Means vote 9-0-0. Hold. Recreation, grand total $1,896,396, an increase of 3.03%. Ways and Means support 11-0-0. Hold. Historical Commission. Grand total $9,780, a decrease of 0.76%. Ways and Means voted 13-0-0. Okay. Debt service, grand total $7,004,377, an increase of 1.77%. Reserve fund, $200,000, decrease of 33%. Middlesex retirement, $10,675,811, an increase of 6.89%. Hold. Negotiated settlements, $500,000, decrease of 43.18%. Stabilization, 0. Local transport, $120,000, level funded. Capital budget, $400,000, an increase of 33.33%. Well, as soon as we have a total, we'll vote on it. Okay, the total right now for the non-held budgets, operating budgets, $43,803,587. All those in favor?
Yeah, I got that. So
Recreation, yeah, recreation.
43803
That's it, yep,
Okay, now I'm at.
right number.
As a heads up, we're gonna do the same thing for Article 7.
Okay,
Try to go through the whole list.
Okay.
See if people hold them.
so I'll do the same thing.
Okay,
and
I
then-
don't, because I don't have those. You,
Yeah, I
I can get you the spreadsheet, yeah,
I'll email it to you.
okay.
Thank you. Okay, the number has been confirmed. $43,803,587 for the non-held budgets. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Okay, now let's go to the held budgets. The administration, who held it? Mr. Frost, what's your issue?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Matt Frost, Precinct 3. Transfer to OPEB. I know this is a standard part of the central administration's budget, but my question is, why are we seeing the OPEB unfunded liability continue to rise? It's over 100 million again, and we're funding this according to Siegel Consulting's schedule, and we're not making any dent in the liability. It continues to grow in spite of these fundings. Thank you.
Mr. Curtin or Paul? Mr. Curtin, please.
Mr. Moderator, the funding schedule is based on a discount rate, based on what the investments can earn, and that rate was lowered from 7.5% to 7.25%. As we all know, the economy, the way it is, long-term funding schedules are being reduced. One time, the investment returns were somewhere around 8.25%. It's being lowered for the last 5 or 6 years. Most long-term investment returns are somewhere in the order of either between 7 and 7.25%. So we're gradually lowering the discount rate, and that is our funding schedule that was adopted as of our last actuarial evaluation was lowered from 7.5 to 7.25%. And that's the reason why the liability did go up from the last funding schedule. But we are, as you know, on a funding schedule. We're increasing the assets. We have over $9,300,000 now that's invested in the state retiree trust fund, which had a return last year of over 15%.
Thank you, Mr. Curtin.
Can I have follow-up, Mr. Moderator?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, I heard what you said, Treasurer. The thing is, the $100 million unfunded liability was as of June 30th, 2019. The economy was doing great up to that point, and the stock market's been roaring along up until that point. In fact, into the year 2000. So we're still falling behind in spite of a very powerful economy and stock market. So what you just said doesn't make any sense.
Excuse me, Mr. Frost. OPEB is not on our budget list. There's nothing here for us to discuss. I allowed the first question.
The transfer to OPEB is right here, and this has to do with it. It's very relevant. So one of my questions is the Middlesex County retirement system keeping pace with the stock market? It sounds like it isn't.
Mr. Curtin.
It absolutely is. I don't agree with you, Matt, I'm sorry, but as I said, the investment return on that fund last year was 15.3%. Yes, obviously this year there's probably not going to be a large increase or percentage investment return because of the economy and these unprecedented times, but we certainly over a 5-10 year period, the investment returns have been very successful in the investment of those funds.
Can you tell me what those returns are after fees in comparison with the S&P 500?
Sure can.
For fiscal 2019.
I have the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year returns. The 1 year return was 16.57%. The 3 year return was 10.42%. 5 year return was 8%, and the 10 year return was 9%. And since inception, it's been 9.45%.
And how does that compare with the S&P 500 in the same periods?
We've been above all the indices for the last 5 to 10 years.
Then why is the liability still growing?
Because the discount rate is being reduced and the number of retirees are increasing, Matt.
Well, we were sold a bill of goods that this liability would level off and start to be worked down, and that's not happening, so something is amiss.
That's your opinion.
It's the truth, just look at the financial statements.
Well, I do
Come on.
every day, believe me.
Okay, if you say so, but you're not right.
I disagree.
Any further questions on the administration budget? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Budget passes. Town clerk was the next held one. Who held it? Mr. Frost.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Okay, I understand, if I read this correctly, there's a part-time employee being added as a full-time employee. And I was wondering if the head of the clerk's office could explain that.
Yes, Matt. And the rest of the body. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Basically, over the past 10 years, which is the last time the staffing at the town clerk's office was looked at and modified, is we have been added onto our, the jobs that we do, about 8 or 9 different either federal or state requirements that are now taking more time and requiring more man-hours than we did 10 years ago. For example, one of the things is the new vitals record system that they have implemented does require a lot more, although it's electronic, it gets the records out faster. It does require a lot more steps and a lot more time to handle those records. And as our population ages and we get older, the number of deaths that we handle in Burlington has also continued to increase. Over the past 5 years, we've had about a 7 or 8% increase in the number of deaths, which just adds to the time that it takes to do that. One of the other downsides with an electronic system is the old paper system. People were a lot more careful, meaning funeral homes, people getting information in. Because it's electronic, everybody feels that it's very simple and automatic. And our numbers of what's called an affidavit of corrections, or corrections that have to be made after the fact, has also increased by 25%. One of the second things that has happened is the fact that the state has issued or implemented an automatic voter registration system, which means every time someone goes to the registry, they are automatically re-registered to vote. This takes time. If you've noticed, if you've gone in and gotten a new driver's license, this takes time for us because we have to go into each record and identify. In fact, to give you some data, in 2018, the month of January and February, we had about 40 new voter registrations in 2018 and in 2019. In 2020, the first 2 months of this year, we actually had over 130 new voter registrations. We have to go through each one of those, identify if it truly is a new voter, and go through the system and either cancel it saying we don't need that one, or add in a new person. Another thing that has been added in the past 10 years is the conflict of interest, which requires us every year to send out to every employee a document that requests that either they take a test or that we have to get notification back from them all of these new regulations have required us to spend a lot more time, and I need more manpower. It's not that we're not able to do things, but it's just we're not able to do them in as timely a manner as we have in the past. So that's really the implementation of why I'm asking for that person to be increased.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to a vote on this budget. All those in favor? Opposed? Clerk's budget is passed. Building Department. Who held it? Mr. Frost.
Okay, something striking about this presentation here starts out well, on the top of page 55, budget issues. This department recoups more than 100% of its operating costs. That's terrific, but doesn't the treasurer's office collect tens of millions of dollars? That's the function of the building department. There's a big increase in full-time salaries between 2020 and budgeted 2021. Are we anticipating a lot more building in town?
Mr. Sagarino, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Matt, last year, town meeting approved the addition of an additional inspector, full-time. That was budgeted for half a year. It's the same position now, budgeted for a full year, which is causing the increase on the salary line.
Okay, is there a forecast that the number of building permits, et cetera, and licenses will be declining because of the pandemic? That's gonna have some adverse effect, isn't it?
I would imagine there is some adverse effect, but I believe as presently constituted, there's plenty of work to be done at the building department, and I know that there are other areas that they would like to increase their ability to respond to in terms of enforcement.
Okay, thank you.
All those in favor of the Building Department budget? Opposed? Motion's carried. Local Education. Who held it? Mr. Frost.
Okay, the first question I have, what happened to what happens to the busing contract? Did we prepay for the busing of students during the time that the classes were all canceled?
Mr. Frost, I believe you asked these questions online once already.
No, I did not.
Well, the answer is going to be the same you got to all those other questions.
This question was not asked online.
Well, then I'm going to give you the answer that the others got. That's not an issue for this year's budget.
It is an issue because my question is does this budget include the refund of that money that we're entitled to?
If there was any refund, it would have gotten rolled back into the general fund. There's nothing to do with this year's budget.
Did the money get refunded?
I have no idea. Go ask the school committee at their meetings.
Well, they're here, aren't they?
Mr. Frost, do you have another question?
That's the question.
Thank you very much. Now, let's vote on this budget. Yes.
Eileen Sickler, Precinct 4. I was wondering why there wasn't a specific line item for the COVID-related expenses. I would think that, I know it would be a swag, but you would make certain assumptions and put some money in there for COVID-related expenses.
Does anyone wish to answer that question? Dr. Conti?
Through the moderator, Ms. Stickler, we haven't received our guidelines yet, so we're planning on operating within the budget that we have. And we may look at some unspent fiscal $20 for some purchasing once we get guidelines, for instance, on protective gear we may need. But that hasn't been fully defined yet from the state.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Regional education. Who held it? Mr. Frost.
In the last few years, we've seen big increases here, and I know that a lot of our more of our students are going over to Shaw Sheen. And I was just curious, I see another new one here, Minuteman. Do we have students going to Minuteman now?
Dr. Conti.
Mr. Moderator, this, not really my budget, but we do have students going to Minuteman now. The state has relaxed some of the restrictions they have on students attending vocational schools where there are spots outside of the catchment area that they normally attend. So if Shaw Sheen is full and there are spots open at Minuteman, they're shifting more students into those programs.
Thank you, Dr. Conti.
Can I follow up?
Go ahead.
Can somebody in the school department indicate how many students we have at Essex, North Shore, and at Minuteman?
Mr. Frost, I believe we have 2 at Essex Tech and 4 at Minuteman.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none? All those in favor? Opposed? Regional school budget is passed. Council on Aging. Who held it? Mr. Frost. Might as well just stand by the microphone.
At least I'm getting some exercise. Yes. In the last several years, this budget has been increasing well above the guideline. Here it's more than double, well, about double, close to double the guideline. And the compensation, total salary is up 10.4%. Now, if we were having a big surge in the number of seniors and more programs, I could understand that. But the annual report has a breakdown of our population. And between fiscal 2018 and 19, the number of people over the age of 60 declined by 5%, even though the population rose by 2.3%. So what's the explanation for these excessive increases in salaries?
Marge, can you handle that one?
I think so. Actually, the stats I have and the census numbers I've seen have been increasing the census of people 60 and over by about 300 people a year. And the issues with that some of the seniors have been having have gotten more complicated over the years, which means more time for our social workers and the time that they spend with each individual person and the number of people that they're actually seeing. So we've had to increase the hours for our outreach workers.
Okay, well, the data you're looking at doesn't match at all the population data for Burlington. Burlington's population over 60 is declining. We're driving them out of town, I guess. I don't know, but the population of Burlington's going up, but those over 60, and it's on page 29 of the 2018 annual report and page 31 of the 2019 annual report. You can see those population statistics right there.
The census I've seen coming from the clerk's office has increased it, but it doesn't matter. The number of hours that the social workers have been spending with the clients has increased enough to make it that we needed more hours for them.
Okay. Well, based on the information I have, I'm going to have to vote no. You've been ahead of the, in excess of the guidelines every year for years now, and there's no justification for it that I can see. Thank you.
Further questions? Yes, sir.
Tom Conley, Precinct 4. I just want to commend the Council on Aging for all the work they've done with the seniors that I'm familiar with that have gone there. And I've had a few seniors approach me, say, thank you so much for referring me to the Council on Aging. It's been a blessing. So I want to thank you much.
Thank you for that.
Further questions? Seeing none, we'll vote on this one. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Library, again, who held it? Mr. Frost.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Okay, the library has quite restrictive hours, and there's a big overtime expense here. And I'm just curious about what that is.
Is someone who can handle that?
I'm over here.
Oop, all right, sorry.
Sorry, standing in the other wings. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I'm wondering, when you're talking about restrictive hours, what you mean by restrictive hours?
Okay, the library is open, what, 40 hours a week, maybe?
Well, no, it's open, I think, around usually 52 hours.
Okay.
Or in excess. We're open on Saturdays, well, typically outside of our hours now, which are restricted because of COVID.
Right.
Just on Saturdays right now. The restrictions is just cut down that one day, but typically our hours are Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. until 9 p.m., Friday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., and then Sundays from 1 to 5. The overtime is on those Sundays from 1 to 5, but then during the summer hours, because the use would typically drop on Sundays as people go into their weekend, we have our regular work week is Monday through Friday, and then Saturdays are our overtime hours. Those overtime hours have stayed fairly stable. Actually, what you see this year is a decrease in those overtime hours. But of course, beyond that weekend overtime, we have to cover vacations because in terms of our coverage, we're pretty much set up for very little redundancy. So we have to cover hours as people take vacations, and that can lead to overtime sometimes as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Further questions on the library? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Library budget is passed. Recreation. Who held it? Mr. Frost.
Okay, a general question. I always have a question for recreation. It was commendably, the budget increase is under the guideline. I think that's terrific. And let's see. No, I think it's fine. I shouldn't have held it.
All those in favor of the Recreation Department budget? All those opposed? The budget passes. Retirement, I believe, is the last one held. Mr. Frost.
Okay, this has been going up pretty steadily, and most recently, for fiscal 2021, 6.89%. I know we have retirees and people going into retirement, and we have to pay that. Obviously, we have a pension obligation. I guess my first question is this going into a fund, or this 10.7 million, or is this going directly to pay the pensions currently?
Mr. Curtin.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. That's Town of Burlington's assessment that pays for the funding schedule for the Middlesex County Retirement System. We're on a funding schedule that we expect to be fully funded by the year 2037. So that's the town's annual assessment. We're on a funding schedule with roughly about a 6.5% increase. The reason that this assessment for this year has gone up a little bit is twofold. One, same answer relative to the OPEB funds, is we have lowered our discount rate on the investment returns of the PRIT fund. We were at 7.5, we've lowered that to 7.375. The town of Burlington has also had two disability of two employees that were young that went out on disabilities, and that affects the funding schedule, and it's going to affect the future funding schedules for the town of Burlington in the next couple of fiscal years.
Thank you. I've got a follow-up question. Okay, I've looked at all the annual reports on the unfunded pension liability, and similar to the OPEB, it's growing in spite of the funding schedule. In 2014, the unfunded liability just for pensions was 98 million. 2015, 105 million. 2016, 115 million. 117 million in 2017. And in the fiscal year ended June 30, 2019, it had risen to 127.4 million. So either the funding is inadequate or the returns are inadequate. And, if we're funding this thing, that liability should be stabilized, shouldn't it? It shouldn't be growing like that.
No, more and more obviously, are you talking about the town of Burlington's unfunded liability?
Burlington's share of the Middlesex County Retirement System's unfunded liability.
Well, as you know, Matt, I think you should know that we are having more and more of our employees retiring on an annual basis. We've had several retirees over the last, I'd say, 5-6 years that you're referring to. We've had several of our police and fire that have retired. That obviously increases our liability. Part of it is the discount rate lowering. The returns have been similar to the returns I quoted on a few minutes ago on the OPEB fund. The Middlesex retirement, we're invested 90% in the PRIT fund, and our returns have been similar. Last year was 15.89% return. The 3-year average is 9.78. 5-year average is 7.44, and the 10-year average is 8.34%.
Okay, it seems that this liability should be stabilized. I understand the idea that more people are retiring, but the fact is these pension liabilities are accrued. They don't have to go into retirement to recognize the liability. As an employee is vested, these liabilities accrue for that employee. They don't all of a sudden hit the books when that employee retires. So I think something's amiss here too.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Are you going to vote against it?
I'll vote against it.
Thank you. Any further questions on the retirement line item? Seeing none, we'll put it to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That completes the operating budget. So congratulations. We have a town we can run next year. Okay, Article 7 is to fund the fiscal year 2021 capital budget. We're going to try doing this one the same way we do the operating budget this year, and see if this will help us move through things a little more quickly. But again, this is not to dissuade discussion when needed. First of all, the moderator would accept a motion to postpone the following article numbers: 7-1, 7-2, 7-4, 7-6, 7-10, 7-14, 7-16, 7-19, and 7-8. I guess I missed one. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, those are all taken care of. Okay, now let's go through the list for Article 7. You, let me say hold if you want to have a discussion on this article. 7.3, police ballistic vests and carriers, $89,580. And somewhere I have the votes. Ways and Means supported this 12-0-0. Capital Budget voted 7-0. Fire 7-5, Fire Administrative Vehicle, $32,000. Ways and Means supported this 12-0-0. Capital Budget voted 7-0 to postpone. 7-7, Recreation Pro Core Area Aerator, $26,000. Ways and Means supported this 9-2. Capital Budget voted 7-0 to postpone. 7-9, Recreation Rohannes Tennis Court Resurfacing, $65,000. Ways and Means voted 11-0-0. Capital Budget voted 6-1 to postpone. 7-11, DPW Vehicle Replacement Program, $457,500. Ways and Means voted 10-1-0. Nope. Hold, okay. 7-11 will hold. $7-12, Tyco Dry Valves, DPW, $40,000. Ways and Means supported 11-0-0. I don't have a vote of capital budget on this one. 7-13, Facilities Upgrade, Energy Conservation Measures. Did I hear a hold? Okay. 7-15, Town Hall Generator, $140,000. Ways and Means support 11-0-0. Capital Budget supported 7-0. Interactive Technology, School Committee, $85,000. Ways and Means voted unanimously, 11-0-0 in favor. Capital Budget voted 2 in favor, 5 opposed. Marshall Simons Middle School Boiler Repair, $125,000. Ways and Means voted 11-0-0. Capital Budget voted 6-1 to postpone. 7-20, Music Department Installs and Upgrades, $50,000. Ways and Means voted 11-0-0. Capital Budget voted 5-2 to postpone. 7-21, Audio Technology Replacement, $100,000. Ways and Means supported 11-0-0. Capital Budget vote was 6-1. Marshall Simons Middle School Auditorium Equipment and Safety Upgrades, 7-22, $350,000. Ways and Means supported 11-0-0. Capital Budget voted 7-0 to postpone. Hold. $7-23, Memorial Playground resurfacing, $50,000. Ways and Means supported this 11-0-0. Capital budget voted 6-1 to postpone. 7-24, Marshall Simons Middle School exterior bathroom, $25,000. Ways and Means supported it 11-0-0. Capital budget voted 6-1 to postpone. 7-25, water bubbler replacement, $50,000. Ways and Means vote 11-0-0. Capital budget 7-0. 7-26, security camera replacement and upgrades, $75,000. Ways and Means supported 11-0-0. Capital budget voted 7-0 to postpone. 7-27, curriculum. School committee, $90,000. Ways and Means supported 11-0-0. Capital budget supported 7-0. Design 7-28, design work. Under the school committee, $100,000. Ways and Means supported it 11-0-0. Capital budget supported it 7-0. 7-29. These will be from the Sewer Enterprise Fund. DPW vehicle replacement, $55,000. Ways and Means supported 11-0-0. Capital budget 7-0. Pump station maintenance, 7-31. $120,000. Ways and Means vote 11-0-0. Capital budget 7-0. Okay, we'll get a total for that, and then we can vote on the ones that were not held. What did I miss? Oh, okay, 7-30, I'm being told, huh? Francis Wyman Pump Station Design, $300,000. Ways and Means supported 11-0-0. Capital budget 7-0. Okay, we have a couple that are held.
Excuse me. Hey, Bill,
What?
can I speak for capital budget for a minute?
On what?
On the series of spending that we just talked about briefly here?
You should have held them, Adam.
It's a
you wanted
general
to
statement.
If you wanted to speak on anything individual, you should have held them. But
I want to speak on the series of spending that
All right.
that we just went through.
Go ahead.
So I'm here tonight representing capital budget. There were Adam Sinessi, Precinct 1. There were several things that were listed that we're tallying right now that capital budget agreed to postpone. I just think it's worth noting that a lot of these projects are nice to haves that could be kicked further on out based on some of the economic repercussions that we see over the next couple of months. That was sort of the reasoning, and because we aren't deliberating in the typical fashion, I just don't want that lost. So that was sort of the method to the madness in a lot of the postponements.
Thank you.
So we're gonna do one free cash and one sewer. The sewer is the bottom part.
Yeah, no, that's what I just calculated. The sewer is 475. Okay.
It's adding that to that.
Just subtract
Do you want
it.
me to write it down?
No, it's okay. And this is 475. The top one is the free cash, the bottom one is the sewer enterprise fund.
Okay, here are the numbers that we're gonna be voting on. 1,142,300, $880 dollars from free cash, $475 from, $475,000, there we go, from the sewer enterprise fund. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Let's back to the ones that were held. 7-13, DPW facility upgrades. 7-11? Am I messing up? Oh, okay. Vehicle replacement, sorry. $457,500. Who held it? Yes. Ms. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Chris Warren, Precinct 4. I just wanted, I held those three, but if we just are going to talk about this first one, to just ask the capital budget if their recommendation is to postpone this till September, and whether we would, as a body, choose to follow their advice. Thank you.
Capital budget. Mr. Sinesi?
Yes, we would be in favor of postponing this till September.
Okay, thank you. Further questions on this?
I have one here.
Go ahead.
Bill Boyvan, Precinct 1. My question is, 4 of these vehicles are currently not plow-equipped, and they're proposed to be replaced with trucks with plows. Would that result in some kind of a significant change to the plowing budget, having more vehicles with our own plows, and reduce the need for hiring outside contractors?
Mr. Moderator?
Yes. Where we at? Oh, Mr. Sanchez, I see you over there. You're hiding behind a.
So, so the answer is yes. This is to have more of our vehicles doing the plowing in the wintertime. But this is a result of actually us in communities around us not able to get contractors. At one point when I got here, we had over 80 pieces of contracted equipment. We're down to 40. In some events, we only have like 20 private contractors showing up. So we're depending more and more of our vehicles and our own forces. So the idea is to have something reliable by our employees right now. And just so the numbers have gone the other way around, we have like 40 private contractors and 40 town pieces that we can put out during a snow event. And the idea is to increase the numbers so we can rely on ourselves.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez.
Further questions on this? Okay, the motion in front of us is to approve. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Now, what's the other held one now? 713. 713. DPW facility upgrades. Who held it?
Hi, over here.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Andy Wellsbean, Precinct 3, strongly in favor of this effort, and I offered some clarifying guidance that I submitted to the moderator and to our clerk via email just now to make sure that we're getting the full value of these upgrades. I don't know if it can be displayed on the screen or if there's another way that you'd like me to present it.
Okay, I can read it here. Okay, what Mr. Wellsbean is requesting is that whenever possible, facility upgrades shall take the form of a deep energy retrofit designed and implemented with a whole building approach. The piecemeal approach, such as a more efficient boiler only, should be avoided. Rather, a whole building approach improves both the building envelope, its roof, walls, windows, and doors, and replaces heating, hot water systems that currently rely on gas and oil with systems that run on increasingly zero GHG electricity, like heat pumps. These efficiency upgrades should include measures such as replacing equipment to more efficiency models, properly sizing equipment to building loads, air sealing, moisture management, controlled ventilation, insulation, and other measures that reduce energy use while producing optimal building performance. As is typical for a DER, upgrades should aim to achieve at least 50% reduction in energy use per square foot. Mr. Sanchez, is this something you can consider?
Mr. Moderator, our goal, and has been since day one when it came to managing energy in the town, is to do projects that will give us the most benefit cost ratio possible in every one of the facilities. Most recently, with the approval of the town as a green community, which Rachel Kaplan worked with different departments, including planning around, we developed a list, a combined list of projects that we're going to do in the town as well as the schools. This project topped the list on a way to actually utilize the grant that we received from them for $173,000 just to be joining green communities. So we're going to use these funds that we are requesting tonight with the grant we received from the state to fund our first project under the Green Communities umbrella. And yes, we pick projects that will give us the most energy efficiency, and we'll work the way down from that.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Further questions, Mr. Bean? Excuse me. Further question?
I guess I'm wondering whether the approach taken will, if you're not looking at buildings in a holistic way, whether you're going to be making appropriate upgrades and investments. If you avoid looking at the level of insulation and thermal bridging in a facility before making upgrades to the HVAC system, you might be spending far too much on new HVAC equipment, for example. So I didn't hear anything in that response about taking a whole building perspective.
If I may add, Mr. Moderator, I should have mentioned that, yes, that's how we approach our buildings. Now, the library, we've already done retrofits when it comes to insulation and others. So we're doing, again, we try to do the ones we get the most money back from first, but we look at our building in the entire envelope, not just, a boiler or an RTU or an air conditioning units.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on this? Thank you, Mr. Wells-Bean. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. 7-22, Marshall Simons Middle School Auditorium Equipment and Safety, School Committee, $350,000. Who held it? Ms. Warren?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I did ask if we would, or I would like to ask if we would postpone this to September, since we are in a situation where we have zero visibility on the future. And so either it could be tonight or we could postpone it till September. Thank you.
Are you making a motion to postpone this?
I am making a motion to postpone this.
Is there a second?
September.
Discussion on the motion to postpone. Yes, Bill, Mr. Boyven.
Bill Boyven, Precinct 1. Yeah, I would like to see more justification. This is a significant amount of money, and I'd like to see more about what is the age and condition of existing equipment that justifies this kind of expenditure for, for this type of equipment.
Mr. Kuna, Dr. Conti, somebody?
Thank you, the moderator. So as far as the age goes, most of the equipment that we're looking to replace is original to the building. Even though the building was renovated in 2012, Marshall Simons Middle School, the auditorium was not renovated as part of that plan. The only thing added to the auditorium was a lift for the stage. So the equipment is original, the house lighting, while the main infrastructure is original, we've updated some light bulbs and so forth. Equipment has been updated about 15 years ago as far as the audio equipment. But again, this isn't just like something that we feel is a want. We think that not only do we need it, it's dark in there, it's also a safety concern as well too. The original rigging is what's a concern on the stage, and we've had that assessed by outside companies, and our building department and fire department has looked at that as well. And we also have some asbestos concerns in the curtains. So there's a safety concern, there's a dark lighting concern, and also when we come back in September to school, this is one of our largest areas that we need for teaching and educational spaces. So this is definitely something that I would not like to see held.
Okay, thank you. The safety concerns helps justify for me the expense. Thank you.
Further comments, questions? Okay, so the motion before us is to amend the motion to, instead of passing it, to postpone it. Mr. Sinesi.
Adam Sinesi, Precinct 1. I want to say from a capital budget standpoint, we considered the safety aspect on everything that we looked at, and anything related to safety we endorsed, but we had discussed in capital budget walking back some of the spending on more of the cosmetics and just addressing the safety issues.
Well, I'm afraid that's not possible with this motion. So, the question is, do we wish to amend the motion and make it a motion to postpone? All those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? The amendment fails. Brings us back to the main motion. All those in favor of the motion as presented? All those opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. Well, okay. Cruising. Oh. Okay, Article 8 has been postponed. Actually, we need to vote to postpone it. I'd accept a motion to postpone Article 8. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's postponed. Article 9. MWRA II debt service. $97,285. The motion is as presented in the warrant. Discussion on this article. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Article 9 passes. Article 10. transfer from Water Stabilization Fund. Article 10 is moved as follows: to see if the town will vote to transfer from the Water Stabilization Fund the sum of $214,000 to cover the operating expenses and debt service related to the connection to the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, MWRA, system. Okay, because this is a transfer from a stabilization fund, I will need a 2/3 vote on this. Is there discussion on it? Mr. Monaco?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Frank Monaco, Precinct 4. In light of possible less use of water, are we collecting as much money as we planned into the stabilization fund in order to do this? I'm not clear on that. So as the money's coming into this by water we use and the increased rate, where are we at on that?
Mr. Sanchez?
So since mid-March, we only had a couple of billings, and we had slight reductions in the amount of water bill that we collected, particularly on the commercial side. On the residential side, we actually had an uptick on it. So, but so far, it's not really relevant. It's very minimum, and I'm surprised about the fact that it hasn't been any higher than that yet. And again, it's only on the commercial side where we've seen like a 10% reduction right now in the collection. So we will have to adjust those numbers in the future if need be, but for now, the plan is still with the 10-year plan that we presented 2 years ago.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, put this to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? I don't see anybody opposed, so it looks unanimous, so we have 2/3. Thank you. Article 11 is moved as printed in the warrant to see if we'll vote to transfer the sum of $6,152,437 to operate the FY 2021 sewer services enterprise. Questions on this article? Being none, all those in favor? Opposed? Article 11 passes. Article 12, road and parking paving is a bond issue. There's one I have to read. Road and parking paving, bond issue. Article 12 is moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee to see if the town will appropriate $3 million to be expended under the direction of the town administrator to pay costs for paving roads and/or parking lots and for the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to MGL Chapter 44, Paragraph 7(1), or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. Any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the costs of the issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, Paragraph 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by a like amount. 2/3 needed on this one. Discussion on this.
Mr. Moderator.
Yes. Who's Monty?
Mr. Moderator, I'm Monty Pearson, Precinct 3. I believe that a number of surveys have taken place in the last few years, and we have had a sidewalk committee also that found that there was a tremendous amount of interest by the residents in increasing the quality and extent of the sidewalk network in this town. And so I'm a bit dismayed to see that we are postponing $300,000 for sidewalks, but rolling through in a bond issue $3 million for parking lots and other road improvements. And I would like to suggest to the body that that sidewalks are more important to the residents of this town than all of these parking lots that are going to be worked on. And that I think that this bond issue ought to include in it provisions for $300,000 worth of sidewalks. And so I'd like to make a motion to that effect.
Do I hear a second? Mr. Sagarino.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Monty, you must have been reading our mind. Prior to town meeting, we had a discussion with the sidewalk committee about new sidewalks. They postponed Article 8, but we were able, through our discussions with Public Works, determine that we have done a good job in getting caught up on our parking lots. We felt that it was too late to adjust this particular bond offering. But on the next one you receive in 2 years, we'll have an adjustment in there for $250,000 worth of new sidewalks per year. So that, what you're suggesting has been done. We were unable to do it due to the timing to make it in time for this town meeting. So we worked that out with the sidewalk committee after the Ways and Means earlier. Steve?
Great, thank you.
Mr. Moran.
Steve Moran, Precinct 3, on behalf of the Sidewalk Committee. We also talked about the possibility of bringing back this warrant article to cover the subsequent 2 years that may not be covered in the January timeframe when we know much more of what's going on with the budget. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Pearson, do you want to continue with your motion?
Mr. Moderator, I believe I needed a second, so.
It was seconded.
Oh, there was a second. Given that the concept has been accepted by the selectmen and the administration, I'm happy with that.
Then you'll withdraw it.
Yes.
Thank you. Question somewhere?
Mr. Moderator, thank you. Roger Bell, Precinct 6. Is any part of the bonding that will the state be kicking in any funds, either state or federal, as part of it, since it's a road repair, et cetera, included in that?
Mr. Sanchez, that for you?
I don't know if what you're referring to is Chapter 90, which is actually coming up in an article subsequent to this one, in which this year I think it's a little bit over $1 million that the state is going to be kicking in towards the town roadway program.
So how would that be different than what we're looking to bond as well? Is that any of that money getting covered into what we're looking to do as part of the $3 million?
As we do every year, we combine Chapter 90 funds with the local funds to complete all the road repairs that you see happening around town. It's a combination of both.
All right, so is the bonding issue also taking into account the amount of money that we're getting from the state at the same time?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Wait, just for information, Ways and Means supported this 11-0-0. Capital budget voted 7-0 to postpone. Are there further questions on this? Seeing none, put it to a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Oops, I needed 2/3. Let's try this again. All those in favor? Opposed? The moderator's going to call this a 2/3. Motion passes. Article 14. 13? I like to skip numbers. Article 13. Phase 1 and Phase 2 MWRA water connections, another bond issue. It has been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee to see if the town will appropriate $3.5 million to be expended under the direction of the town administrator to pay costs of water connection construction under Phase 1 and water connection design under Phase 2, and for the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the selectmen, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to MGL Chapter 44, Paragraph 8, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. All or any portion of this borrowing may be undertaken through the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority's loan program. The treasurer, the town administrator, and the selectmen are authorized to execute and deliver any and all documents and agreements that may be required by the MWRA in connection with any borrowing through the MWRA. Any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of the cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with MGL Chapter 44, Paragraph 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such a cost by a like amount. You got it? Whew. Okay. Discussion on this.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moderator, sorry. Monty
Yes.
Pearson, Precinct 3. I don't remember, I remember voting to authorize the water connection with the MWRA, but I was under the impression that at that time we had voted bond issues to pay for the first phase. And so could we have an explanation of the various phases this is going to cost us?
Mr. Sanchez?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, that is correct. 2 years ago, in 2018, Phase 1 was approved for construction, as well as the entrance fee to the MWRA for Phase 1. Over the last 2 years, we've been working on permits through the MEPA process, which thankfully, we received a MEPA certificate about a month ago, after working very hard on that. But during the process, the design changed a little bit. The Adams Street pipe that was going to end up being a 12-inch main, which it was going to remain as an emergency connection, actually became our preferred route. So instead of a 12-inch water line, it's now going to be a 24-inch water line. Also through the process, DEP is requiring the town to install a chemical feed station at the town line. And that is so that the town will match our corrosion control system that we currently use with the water that comes from the MWRA. So those two factors added cost to Phase 1. We're also asking for design money for Phase 2 to try to accelerate the project. As you recall, we had said in 2018, we were planning on being back to town meeting in 2021. We're asking you as well, as far as this funding, to allow us to go and do design to accelerate the project by at least 1 year. But yeah, the answer is correct. Now includes part of what we had already funded before, but it's a much larger project now. And if I may add one more thing, the total cost of the project does not change. So when we come back next year to ask for construction, we're going to reduce that amount by this $3.5 million.
Oh, so that means that the total amount of money for the project will not change. That means that the increases in water and sewer rate will not go up?
That
more
is
than
correct.
they are?
There is no increase in the total cost of the project.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. Further questions? Yes, is that Ms. Warren over there? Not bad, my glasses are fogging up and I still recognize you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you to Mr. Sanchez, I just need a reminder on what Phase 2 is of the project for water. Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Moderator, phase 1 was just to replace 1 million gallons of water lost to shutting down 3 wells at the Vine Brook Treatment Plant. Phase 2 is actually a pipeline that would allow a connection all the way to Arlington. So it'll be a line that will be sufficient to totally abandon the Vine Brook Treatment Facility when the town is ready to abandon that facility. And that will provide us up to 6.5 million gallons of water a day.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. Bell?
Roger Bell, Precinct 6, thank you. Mr. Sanchez, are these bonded through the water, the MWRA? Are they 0% loans that we have to secure, or is this actually a loan that we have to go out and fund for ourselves? How does that?
Well, as is worded in such a way that if there were any loans by the MWRA we could take advantage of at a lesser rate, we can do that as well. But the projection is we will borrow the money as we borrow money for anything else in the town.
When the two bond items that we just bonded, how much is, how do we figure the percentage, and what is the time frame that the town needs to repay on these?
Okay, I can have somebody in finance talk about it, but the important part about this is this is going to be funded directly from that water stabilization fund.
Okay.
So this does not affect any of the other projects or funding that the town does through bonds, because that's why we created that fund that specifically we pay for this project.
Oh, that works out well. Thank you. And as far as the initial bond, we just okayed beforehand. How does that also being worked out for the town?
Right. Most of these water issues are 30-year bond issues. The town just went out for a $20 million, $910,000 bond issue, and the rate we got was 2.24% over 30 years. Rates are extremely low right now, so it's a great time to borrow and fund capital projects.
Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, again, this is a 2/3 vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Moderator's going to call this a 2/3 majority in favor. Thank you. Article 14, moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee, and it as printed in the warrant. This is for acceptance of Chapter 90 funds. Any questions on accepting money? Yes, sir. Is that Mr. Conley?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Conley, Precinct 4. We didn't get what the amount was. I didn't hear what the amount was, that's all.
Do we know an amount, Mr. Sanchez or Mr. Hayes?
Mr. Moderator, it's $1,084,501.
I'm glad you got that one in there. That'll balance the budget. Okay. All those in favor of Article 14? Opposed? Article 14 passes. Article 15. Is moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee as printed in the warrant for Cable Access Enterprise Fund to transfer the sum of $540,000 to operate the Cable Access Enterprise for 2021. Ways and Means voted 12-0-0 in favor of this. Questions on this? Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 16 is moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee as printed in the warrant, to see if we will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to enter into a lease purchase agreement on technology and cybersecurity contracts. Questions on this? Mr. Boyven?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Bill Boyven, Precinct 1. I firmly believe that improving the infrastructure and cybersecurity is a vital function that needs to be funded. My question is, this sounds like there's a lot of new equipment being purchased. Are we just receiving equipment and current staff has to come up to speed on this equipment and how to install it, or is it coming with installation and training along with the new cybersecurity and infrastructure?
Thank you,
No?
Mr. Moderator. This is Jose de Souza. I'll answer that question.
Oh, okay, excuse me.
All right, thank you. The equipment is gonna come, and the contractors are gonna install, and they also are gonna train our department.
Okay, so the funding includes all that.
Yes.
Terrific, thank you.
Excuse me, where were we? Was the question answered? Okay, any further questions? This is another 2/3 vote, as it is a lease involved. All those in favor? Opposed? Looks unanimous. Motion passes. Article 17 is being postponed, so I need a motion to postpone. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is postponed. Article 18 has been withdrawn. Article 19. It is to fund the administrative and professional compensation plan. It has been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee to see if the town will vote to adopt the administrative and professional compensation plan for FY 2021 and transfer from the FY 2021 negotiated settlement account the sum of $102,572 for the purpose of funding the plan, same to be expended under the appropriate authorities. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article, that was 19, so this is 20. Article 20, to fund the part-time compensation plan. It is moved and seconded by the Ways and Means to see if the town will vote to transfer from the FY 2021 negotiated settlement the sum of $4,464 for the purpose of funding the part-time salary plan for under 20 hours for fiscal year 2021, same to be expended under the appropriate authorities. Discussion. Seeing none then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Let me get rid of some paper. Here we go. Article 21, fund the Burlington Police Patrolmen Association contract. It has been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee to see if the town will vote to transfer from the FY 2021 negotiated settlement account the sum of $147,900 $688 for the purpose of funding the approved collective bargaining agreement between the Town of Burlington and the Burlington Police Patrolmen's Association for FY 2021 and FY 2022, same to be spent under the appropriate authority. Questions on this? Again, seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 22 has been withdrawn. Or actually, has to be postponed, so I need a vote. All those in favor? Postponement? All opposed? Motion is postponed. Thank you. Article 23, Special Counsel for the Appellate Tax Board. It's moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee to see if the town will vote to transfer from the overlay surplus account the sum of $150,000 for the purpose of paying town council, expert witnesses, and other related consultants for the purpose of assisting the town in defending appellate tax board cases. Discussion. Okay, in that case, let's vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 24, another one to be postponed. Is there a motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is postponed. Thank you. Article 25, Economic Development. It's been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $35,000 for the purpose of funding economic development plans in order to create a specific strategy to enhance the economic well-being of the town. And I've been neglecting to give Ways and Means votes. Ways and Means voted unanimously in favor of this. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Article 26. Wireless legal infrastructure analysis. It's been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $100,000 for the purpose of a wireless legal infrastructure analysis in order to review regulation changes. Ways and Means voted in favor of this. Is there discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 27, I'd accept a motion to postpone. All those in favor? Opposed? Article 27 is postponed. I'd accept a motion to postpone Article 28. All in favor? Opposed? Article 28 is postponed. Article 29. Moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee to see if the town will accept money from the will of Marshall Simons. Discussion on this? Seeing none? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. It's nice that we accept money. Article 30, Community Custodial Services. To see if the town, this has been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $47,464 to be expended under the direction of the Burlington School Committee for the purpose of community custodial fees to fund events which are not school events in order to cover Burlington Scout organizations, PTO meetings, boosters, citations, youth basketball, youth volleyball, youth baseball association, Pop Warner, hockey, soccer, skating associations, and other not-for-profit Burlington civic organizations. Ways and Means voted in favor. Discussion on this, yes. Ms. Sickler.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Eileen Sickler, Precinct 4. So this is, I think, a few $1,000s more than last year. So it doesn't look like there was any consideration given for, I think, the fact that there won't be these groups getting together for at least Q3 or through September or possibly even through December. So I would have expected that number to be less.
Well, I don't see anyone jumping up to comment on it, but I suppose if they don't show up, oh, there we go, we won't spend the money. Mr. Kuna.
Through the moderator, Mrs. Sickler, thank you for that. So, it is true that some of these groups won't meet because of the Q3, and then of course next year in September, some of these groups won't meet. But numerous of these groups overspend these or use more hours that are available. So since this is a revolving account, we would just apply those balances or any balance left over to other accounts instead of charging them for it.
I'm sorry, so if there's any excess, which I would expect for FY20, which I can't comment on, but so if there's anything left on FY21, it goes where?
So every group is allotted a certain number of hours, but there are numerous groups that use more hours than they are allotted.
Got it.
So instead of charging them, we would reduce what we would charge them with the money that's left over from groups that don't use the money.
And I'm just curious, so if there is some money left over at 6/30/21, where does that go?
It would continue to the next year. It's a revolving account.
Okay, so it's revolving. Okay, thank you, Mr. Kuhn.
Further questions on Article 30? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 31 is being postponed. I'd accept a motion. All in favor? Opposed? Done. Article 32. I have an amended motion. Which I will have to read. Okay, the motion is as printed in the warrant, except for paragraph 1.5.4, committee composition. So I will read that part of it. The committee shall consist of 9 voting members total, of which 5 members are town residents to be appointed by the Board of Selectmen within 30 days after the adjournment of the May town meeting. In the absence of an active committee, these 5 members shall be appointed as follows. 2 members will be appointed for 3 years, 2 members will be appointed for 2 years, and 1 member will be appointed for 1 year. Thereafter, all appointments shall be 3 years. The committee shall annually elect a chairperson, vice chairperson, and appoint a secretary. The secretary shall not be a member of the committee. The committee shall define the duties of the secretary and fix the compensation of the secretary. The remaining 4 members shall be town employees who are fully or partially responsible for information system security or can represent the position of their department to the committee. Of these 4, there will be one employee from town administration, public safety, school department, and the library appointed by the department's respective supervisory board. These 4 members shall serve a 3-year term at the discretion of their appointing authority. Okay. Discussion on this. Seeing none. Let's vote on it. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion 32, Article 32 has been passed. Article 33. Amend general bylaw, Article 5, Section 2.3, with the Bylaw Review Committee. Has been moved and seconded as printed in the warrant. Comments on this? Mr. Monaco.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Frank Monaco, Precinct 4. I didn't catch this before, but it says the committee shall define the duties of the secretary and fix the compensation of the secretary. Why would this be any different than the compensation for a typical recording secretary? And what are the guidelines on what the compensation would be? Seems pretty open to me. I don't understand why we need to do that.
Someone with a comment?
Mr. Moderator, Scott Martin,
Mr. Martin.
Chairman of the Bylaw Review Committee, Precinct 7. The wording for that is the same wording that all of the other committees that use a recording secretary or a clerical secretarial staff part-time. And there is, Human Resources has a set schedule, compensation schedule for the time payment, the hourly wage for that person. If I put something in there, then I have to adjust it every year as that contract changes.
If I may follow up, Mr. Moderator?
Go ahead, Mr. Monaco.
I understand perfectly that you basically are going by the guidelines that all these committees use for the language for compensation. I just think at some point, I mean, we have a schedule for the compensation for recording secretaries, and I would think that that should be the language for all of these positions going forward. The way this reads, any committee could make the compensation anything they wanted, I would assume.
No. No. The recording secretary, there actually is a specific line and hourly rate that the human resources people paid all of these secretaries or recording secretaries with.
Okay, thank you. It is confusing to me, but I understand what you're saying.
And if we had a recording secretary, then that line would be adjusted to read per something about as paid out of the such and such section of the whatever. But we don't have a recording secretary to undertake all of that work that would have to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions on this? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Article 34 has been withdrawn. Article 35 is being postponed. I'd accept the motion. All those in favor of postponing? Again, opposed to it? Motion carries. Article 35 is postponed. Article 36 is being postponed. Accept a motion for it? All in favor of postponing? Opposed? Article 36 is postponed. Brings us to Article 37. To amend zoning bylaws, Article 2, Section 2.69, definitions. It has been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee as printed in the warrant. Okay. Discussion on this.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Al.
Monty
Mr.
Pearson,
Pearson.
Precinct 3. The Land Use Committee considered Article 37 and approved of the parts of it that were related to parking, but was uncomfortable with the first article, which is about green space. And in accordance with that, I'd like to move that this Article 37 be divided, and that 2.7.4.1 green space be voted on as a separate issue by the body.
Can we do that?
It's been advertised, so it's fine. They're just adding a definition. It's not gonna change.
Okay, we can do that. So let's, so I need a move to divide.
Move to divide.
Second? All those in favor of dividing this? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Our first part of Article 37. See if the town will vote to amend Article 2 of the town zoning bylaw by adding the following subsection. 2.7.4.1 green space, an upland area of grass, trees, or other vegetation set apart for recreational or aesthetic purposes. Retention areas and designated wetlands are not green space. Mr. Pearson, comments?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Hidden in your bags, along with the water and goodies, is a statement that I wrote out, and I'm sorry I was not able to get it available earlier to you. But I won't bother to read through it. Let me just hit on the highlights. And that is that this definition of green space is severely limited, and that there are two ways of thinking about green space. One is green space for recreational uses, such as parks and playgrounds and the Burlington Town Column. And the other use of green space is an aesthetic purpose, and that in practice means landscaping. And what has happened is, in the past, the planning board, when it is negotiating with developers, has come in and asked developers to provide green space in return for the town giving concessions on some kind of either zoning or other types of rules. And in many instances, that concession has ended up meaning that the developer put in lawn and a few plants. And I think that in other towns, when developers come in and want to have changes to the density of their project, or they add more parking or something like that, the town frequently is able to get the developer to make either a real green space area, or to get the developer to contribute to the town possessing green space in another part of town. And I think that it would be better for the town if this definition of green space was not used, and instead there was a definition for green space, which was actually mixed area of plants and trees and water and lawn, suitable for birds and animals or for passive recreation, and a separate definition called landscaping. And that would be the use of lawn and plants and trees. And so that we would then know whether or not the developer was giving us green space that added up to park space, or adding to a conservation area, or building a playground or something like that, or whether or not the developer is providing us with a lawn. And personally, I think that the planning board giving concessions to developers in return for them promising to landscape their property doesn't make any sense. And I think that the town can get more. There are public benefits the town could get from the development process. And that needs to happen through the bylaws, not giving such a vague definition of green space. And so I'm asking the town meeting to vote down this version of green space that has been presented to you by the planning board and the zoning board review, and asking them to go back to the table and come up with a better, more favorable definition for the town.
Yes, for the zoning bylaw review committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. This is Ed Parsons, Precinct 6. I am not speaking for the ZBRC because we don't have an official position. We hadn't considered this particular amendment.
Hold on, you have. Are you,
Well, I can speak
you can
for-
defend your article, please.
I will defend our article.
Yes.
I have some, secondarily, I have some comments on the proposed change. The
Okay.
definition of green space is coupled with the definitions for parking because we had some articles which are going to be postponed until September, but they were before us, in which green space was traded for area of land upon which parking would be built. And we needed definitions of those in order to well specify what was being regulated. The green space definition we came up with has two benefits that we considered. The first is that it is used in the zoning bylaws. The second is that it is useful for future zoning bylaws. The way it stood, green space could be interpreted as undeveloped land without a structure on it, and as such, a developer could throw down mulch or pea stone and just call that green space. And we actually tightened and made more specific the definition and specified that it had vegetation on it. It has the added advantage that it is colloquially understood as this. We took this definition after surveying dictionary definitions and definitions that had been used and were in use. That's the position of the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. That's what we considered. Mr. Pearson did present to us his ideas. We didn't have a formal position on that, so I'll speak for myself. My opinion was that the definition that he had proposed specifies that the green space area was suitable for habitat. That, I feel, is an invitation for unintended consequences and makes it not useful for future bylaws because it imposes a requirement for that green space to be usable as a habitat for species. There are trillions of species and trillions of opportunities to argue over whether or not that green space is now suitable. It also specifies that it's for passive recreational use by the public. That could be interpreted as imposing a requirement that the public have access and use in some unspecified way that green space. And the way that we envisioned using green space, the way it's used and the way it was contemplated being used in proposed bylaw amendments is basically a landscaped area on a property that was zoned for use by the property holder, in all cases that were before us, for business uses. I have to say that I very much agree with most of Mr. Pearson's principles as I know them for environmental protection and enhancing open space and natural habitat. I just think that in a very technical way, this is inappropriate here, and I would prefer to define other terms for open space that would enhance the amount of wildlife habitat and vegetation that we have when and if we have zoning bylaws that need to define such terminology to affect the promotion of those areas.
Ms. Ellis? Ms. Ellis, for clarification to me, does this definition for green space only apply to a particular zoning bylaw?
No, it does not. Shari Ellis, Chair of the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee, also town meeting member precinct 3. No, so in the definitions, the zoning bylaws, they apply to throughout the bylaws.
Okay.
In this instance, the particular green space definition is currently in there just once, but if we ever amended any other bylaws, there are some proposed bylaws that were postponed for tonight that was also going to be using green space. So it needs to be a general term as far as not being so specific. So Monty, Mr. Pearson did come to the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee, and he did present this. We had a discussion with him. And we don't define every term that's in the bylaws if they are a generic kind of term that you would have in a dictionary. So we discussed green space. It is not in any, a definition of it is not in any planning dictionary that was available. So we determined that it should be defined here in our bylaws because it's kind of intrinsic to a lot of things that the planning board does. They do allow green space or try and encourage green space specifically recently for parking, trading green space for parking. So we decided that it really should be defined term. Since we didn't find it in any of the planning dictionaries that are available to the planning boards, we went to the dictionaries. And this is the definition. The first sentence is the standard Oxford Dictionary. I believe in some of our previous discussions in other meetings, our building inspector added the last sentence just to really make sure that we weren't using any wetlands or things like that. And when Mr. Pearson came to us, we kind of had another discussion about this. We wanted to be able to use this term more generically throughout all of the bylaws and not have to change it. In addition to that, it was also brought up that when the planning board is looking to mediate their conditions of approval and things like that, if we have now two definitions that Mr. Pearson was presenting, green space or landscape, now they will have to determine which one they want to use. Should they use both? Should they just use one? It becomes a more complicated issue. And in addition to that, the definition that Mr. Pearson presented for landscape, that definition is actually within the green space definition. So it seemed kind of a little bit duplicative in that sense. So, you know, we did have a discussion about it. We did take a vote on it, and we continued to keep the definition that we had proposed, and that vote was 7-0-1. The proponent of some of the other articles was the abstaining vote. So that's pretty much where we came up with that. I'm not sure if there was a land use vote for that, or if that was just Mr. Pearson's presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Pearson, was there a land use vote on this?
We didn't have a land use vote on the specific green space amendment that I'm making now.
All right, thank you. Further comments? Mr. Boyven?
Yes, Bill Boyven, Precinct 1. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to support what Mr. Pearson is proposing. I think defining two different levels of pervious area rather than paved area would help to have more leverage when you're negotiating with conditions for development, that you can have green space or meaning it has more value as a resource, and then just more decorative landscaping. You could specify one or the other in your terms that you're trying to establish. And I think there definitely is situations where green space, as Mr. Pearson wants to define it, would be very much appreciated in terms of improvements that have value for wildlife or habitat. So I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you.
Further discussion? Ms. Warren? Oops, and somebody over there.
Yes, sir, Mr. Moderator. I would like to comment that I agree with Monty's proposal in principle, but I think that We do need to vote a green space definition this evening because I think it is going to play into some later zoning articles regarding structured parking in the BG district. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
So Ms. Willard?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sally Willard, Precinct 4. I agree with the prior speaker that I think that we need the green space definition, and that if we're to not vote on the definition of green space tonight, it's going to be detrimental going forward. I also believe that if we are going to add a landscaping definition to the zoning bylaw, then that's something that we can take up for a future town meeting. So I support Article 37 as written.
Thank you, Ms. Willard. Yes, ma'am.
Silvana Shaki, Precinct 6. I'd like to support Mr. Pearson, and I think it's very important to have those definitions so that we can negotiate better with the landscape, the builders.
Is that Mr. Eiler behind that mask?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Well, for John Eiler, Precinct 6. First off, I would say the wrong reason to vote for something is because we need to pass another article that's related. But I think there's a simple solution here. What I would first off, I would agree with Monty that we don't want to water down the concept of what a green space is. Once a definition is in the bylaws, it's of course very difficult to change it once it's being referenced. But I think the simple solution is if we were to change 2.7.4.1, instead of defining green space, we simply change that term to perhaps defining landscaping. Then, as I believe Ms. Ellis said, we would like to be able to use this term in the future, but currently it's only being referenced in one potential bylaw, which is in Article 41 coming up. So in Article 41, it's referencing the term green space. So I believe if we just change the definition here from being green space to landscaping, and then when we get to Article 41, we would merely need to amend that to reference landscaping instead of green space. It would all be very consistent. We would have a definition that would probably be more appropriate instead of calling it green space. The term green space would be reserved for future use, and we could define that to be whatever we want it to be once that becomes a term that's going to actually be used. So I think, in my point of view, the thing to do is just reserve the term green space for future use, instead call this landscaping, with the understanding that in Article 41, we would then amend that to say landscaping, and it would all be very consistent, and we haven't watered down our term green space. So I would offer an amendment that, I guess Article 37A, Part 1 now, we just changed the phrase green space to landscaping.
I accept that as a friendly amendment.
For information, Article 41 is being postponed.
Okay, that makes this even less important right now, but
Ms. Ellis, would you care to comment on this first as Chair of the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee?
Point of information, the term green space is already in our bylaws. We approved a IH amendment in January. And that's why we brought this article back with the parking structure definitions and the green space, because we approved those bylaws and they had undefined terms. So now we're defining them, so we're kind of behind the 8 ball. But we promised that we would come back with definitions.
I misunderstood.
That's one point of information. My other question is, Because this is a zoning bylaw amendment change, and we have the definition of green space, if we're talking about adding a definition of landscaping, does there need to be a public hearing for that? Because it's a different definition than what is defined.
Yes.
Yes, so I would move that we can't do that amendment and change the landscape definition because there hasn't been a public hearing.
Okay, then that amendment will be ruled out of order.
May I speak?
Go ahead.
Tamara Maniscalco, Precinct 4. I'm also on the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. I just wanted to say that the reason, during this discussion with Monty, the reason that I did not vote for going with his definition is because a mixed area of plants, trees, water, and lawns suitable as habitat for birds and animals and/or for passive recreation usage by the public really imposes kind of a burden on landlords. So now you have people, you're expected to have people walking through your garden, you're expected to have plants and animals there. I personally have had a bee infestation in my home, and they ended up being a protected species. It was extremely expensive to fix that problem. And also, you have, as a landlord, you would have people walking through your property, possibly tripping and falling. There's additional liability. So the known definition and the expected definition has been the landscaping definition of green space. So it's just an area of trees, grass, and other vegetation. That's the reason that I voted to keep the green space definition that we had. That's all.
Let's remind you, everyone, that Monty's motion is, in essence, is to postpone this to be worked on further. It's not to change the language. Ms. Earl, does the planning board have a comment on this?
Yes, thank you. This is Barbara LaRue for the Planning Board. For the reasons stated by Mrs. Ellis, we would request that town meeting vote on this definition of green space tonight, but we would be very happy to take up Mr. Monty's proposal for September and come up with another definition that covers what he is proposing. We do think it's possible and probably advantageous to have two definitions, but we haven't had that public discussion, and clearly there's some very strong opinions, and we believe that discussion should be held with the public in the planning board process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Further comments? All right, let's simplify things. Essentially, Monty's asking us to vote this down. So we'll either vote it up or down, and if it goes down, you'll just have to negotiate further. Is that okay, Ms. Ellis?
Just a question, if this gets voted down, this is a 2/3 vote, then does this not come back for 2 years?
Yes, you're right. Good catch.
So that's an important vote. So
All right.
we already have the definitions in our bylaws. We can work to discuss how we want to change them, but I would highly recommend that we don't vote it down simply because now we can't come back to you for 2 years. Thank you.
They can with this change to the definition. They can't come back with exactly the same definition.
You can come back with a change definition, just can't come back with the same identical one. Tell you what, we're going forward here. Monty has a motion to postpone this for further discussion for the green space discussion. All those in favor of Monty's motion?
His request was just not to approve it. So the vote is to approve it or not approve it. He wants people to vote it. They already approved the motion, the change. He moved to bifurcate it. The question is, does the board meeting want to approve it? So it would require
Okay.
a 2/3 vote to approve it. Motion is a positive.
All right. I stand corrected. We are going to vote up or down on green space definition. Monty has asked us to vote it down. If we do vote it down, they can't come back with the same definition for 2 years. So they can come back with a modified definition. So all those in Okay, all those in favor of the definition as presented in the warrant article? And this will require a 2/3. All those opposed? The moderator's gonna call this 2/3 in favor. So that passes. Let's move on to the other piece of this article. To see if the town will vote to amend Article 2 of the zoning bylaw by adding the following subsections, and they are as printed in the warrant. 2.16.1.1 for parking lots, 2.16.1.2 for parking structures, detached parking structure, integrated parking structure, and parking deck. Discussions on this? Good, you're not going to make me get confused. Seeing none, put this to vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Moderator would accept a motion to postpone Articles 38 and 39. All in favor? Opposed? Most motions are withdrawn. Article 40 has been withdrawn. Article 41, I would accept a motion to postpone. All those in favor? Opposed? Article 41 is postponed. Article 42 has also been requested to be postponed. Do I hear a motion? All in favor? Opposed? Article 42 is postponed. Which brings us to Article 43, the last one in the warrant. Amazing. Okay, it has been moved and seconded by the Ways and Means Committee for Article 43, as it is as printed in the warrant, to amend zoning map and rezone property to high-rise industrial IH district. Planning Board, do we have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Barbara LaRue for the Planning Board. The Planning Board voted unanimously in favor of this article.
Okay, the proponents for this, are they still here? Mr. Scott, how are you, sir? How are you tonight?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. It's your baby.
It's my baby, okay.
You and Mr. Buckley can have that podium here or any microphone you wish.
Good evening. Yeah, I don't know if do you want to run that? And
You can ask whatever you want.
we did submit a 2-minute presentation overview. It's a very simple request that we have before you. If you recall, back in January, this body approved changes to the IH district and rezoned 3 parcels. Part of it was up at the summit where Millipore Sigma is. We did not have bank approval to include one of the parcels up there, the existing 200 Summit. We've gotten that bank approval, so we could submit that and add that in. So it's essentially a housekeeping change to make all of Summit Drive property all under the same uniform IH zone. Currently, the remaining parcel, 200 Summit, is IG still. So we were just trying to have one cohesive campus. So we put forward that small change to you tonight. Thank you.
Discussion. Land Use Committee, did you vote on this? I guess not. In that case, All those in favor? It's a 2/3. Opposed? Looks unanimous to me. We're done.
Thank you and good evening.
We be adjourned. I can't thank you all enough. Been worried about this meeting for a while, whether we'd get her done, but how far we'd get. You folks are great. You stepped up to the plate and you got it done. Thank you, thank you, thank you.